A spider is weaving a fortress it has no reason to build. The moment it's finished, the spider dies inside it. Riding on its back is a larva that has spent days rewriting its mind from the inside, until the hunter became a contractor, building the tomb of its own murderer. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how a wasp the size of a grain of rice reaches into a spider's brain and pulls the strings. Host or hijacker? No one is safe. The hijacker has a name: Reclinervellus nielseni, a parasitoid wasp the size of a grain of rice. Remember that word, parasitoid. A parasite takes a little and lets you live. A parasitoid always kills. It keeps its host alive only as long as the host is useful, then ends it. Its target is the orb-weaver, the patient architect that strings glittering wheels of silk between the branches at dusk and rebuilds them night after night by pure instinct. The spider is not weak. It has venom, speed, and a web that feels the faintest tremor. By every measure, it should win. And yet on opposite sides of the planet, it ends up enslaved. Not by strength, by a chemical key cut to fit a lock the spider never knew it had. Which raises the question that should stop you cold. How does a brain smaller than a poppy seed override an animal that has been perfecting web building for hundreds of millions of years? It starts with a single, surgical sting. To understand that sting, you have to understand what the wasp is actually up against. The wasp does not win by being stronger. It wins by being patient, and by carrying a chemical key the spider's own body was built to trust. But trust alone is not enough, because to pull this off, one tiny wasp has to solve 3 separate problems, and getting any one of them wrong means death. First, it has to subdue a venomous predator at close range without being bitten, wrapped, or eaten. Second, having survived that, it has to keep that same predator alive and hunting and feeding it, not for hours but for days. And third, on one specific night out of all those days, it has to make a creature governed entirely by instinct abandon everything that instinct tells it to do, and instead build a structure that serves no purpose in the spider's life at all. A structure that exists only to protect the wasp. Think about how precise that is. Not a poison, not brute force, a schedule. 3 impossible problems solved in sequence by an animal you could lose in the creases of your palm. The wasp solves all 3. Start with the first. The female wasp approaches the web with terrible care. She knows the spider feels every vibration, so she moves like a thief. When she strikes, she delivers a temporary paralytic sting, a chemical that switches the spider off for a matter of minutes. The spider goes limp, helpless, frozen midair in its own web. But the wasp does not eat it. She does something far more patient. She bends her abdomen and glues a single egg onto the spider's body, usually near the base of the abdomen, in a spot the spider cannot reach to scrape it away. Then she leaves. Minutes later, the paralysis fades. The spider wakes, and as far as the spider is concerned, nothing has happened. It goes back to its web. It catches flies. It repairs torn silk. It lives an apparently normal life. For days, sometimes a week or more. But it is no longer alone. The egg hatches into a larva, and that larva clamps onto the outside of the spider's body and begins to feed, piercing the skin and drinking the spider's fluids drop by drop, growing larger every day. And here is the loop that should keep you watching. Through all of this, the spider keeps building ordinary webs. The larva is just a passenger, feeding quietly, until one particular night, when the passenger decides to take the wheel. What changes? And how does a feeding larva reach the controls of a spider's mind? The answer is chemistry, and the timing is exquisite. For most of its life on the spider, the larva grows slowly and asks for nothing but food. But on the final night, the night before it leaves the spider's body to form its pupa, it releases a flood of chemical compounds directly into its host. And here is what makes it terrifying. The wasp isn't inventing a command the spider can resist. It's forging the spider's own signature. The spider's body already makes a hormone that controls its molting and its building behavior. The larva injects a near-perfect copy of that hormone, ictosone, and speaks the spider's own chemical language back to it. It tells a lie the spider's body has no way to question. The spider reads it as an order to molt, to enter the hardwired program it uses to build a strong resting web before shedding its skin. But the larva twists that program. It locks the spider into a single phase, looping the same few movements over and over. The spider begins to build, not a hunting web, a reinforced platform, and it builds it again and again, refining the same motions, because the chemical command will not let it stop. But hold on, the spider building a resting web on command is strange enough. What it is about to build instead is something almost no animal on Earth ever makes, and the most disturbing part is still coming. Because the spider is not just being told to build, it is being told to build a tomb, and it will sit inside it, alive and wait. This is the moment the title promises. The spider, fully alive, fully mobile, walking on its own 8 legs, becomes a builder for an architect it cannot see. It tears down its normal web. Then it weaves what scientists call the cocoon web, and it is nothing like the delicate wheel it has made every night of its life. The catching spiral is gone entirely. The sticky threads are gone. Instead, the spider lays down a small number of immensely strong support lines, radiating out and anchoring tight, and it does something it would never normally do. It walks the same threads over and over, reinforcing them, multiplying their strength many times beyond an ordinary web. In the Japanese species, the spider even decorates these lines with thick, fuzzy bands of special silk, bright fibers that reflect ultraviolet light. To our eyes, they look almost decorative. In function, they are a warning sign and a shield, a structure built to stop a flying insect or a bird from blundering through and destroying what hangs at the center. Because something will soon hang at the center. The spider builds a reduced, super strong web with a reinforced hub, and at that hub, it builds a resting place, a cradle. Its work is finished, the cocoon web is complete, and the spider has just built the safest place in the forest for the thing that is about to kill it. When the building is done, the spider does one last thing under the larva's command. It walks to the center of its reinforced web, to the hub it has just strengthened, and it sits, still, waiting. Now the larva collects its debt. On that final night, it kills the spider at last, and it feeds. It consumes the spider's body almost entirely, drinking what remains until little is left but an empty husk hanging at the center of the fortress the spider built with its dying effort. Then the larva discards the remains and climbs to the reinforced hub, the strongest point of the whole structure, the exact spot the spider was compelled to build and then guard. There it spins its own cocoon, a pupal chamber, and it hangs suspended in the safest cradle the forest can offer, swaying in the wind, protected from rain, shielded from predators, held high above the ground on silk lines many times stronger than they had any natural reason to be. Inside that cocoon, the larva transforms, and in a week or two, an adult wasp emerges. It flies off into the trees, carrying the blueprint in its genes, hunting the next orb-weaver, rebuilding its web at dusk, ready to begin the entire cycle again. The spider gave everything: its labor, its instinct, its body, and finally its life, all spent in service of the one creature it should have fought hardest to destroy. But here is what should disturb you more than the death. The spider could have stopped this. Its mind was never broken. So why, through every night of its captivity, did it never once fight back? The answer is the most unsettling part of the whole story. It is tempting to call this cruelty. It is not. There is no malice in that wasp, no plan, no awareness of what it does. What you are watching is something stranger and, in a way, more unsettling than cruelty. You are watching information win. The wasp carries, written into its body chemistry, a sequence of signals precisely tuned to a system inside another species, a key cut over millions of years of evolution to fit a lock in the spider's nervous system. It does not need to understand the spider any more than a virus understands a cell. It only needs the right chemical phrase, delivered at the right moment, in a language the host cannot help but obey. And this is the pattern this channel keeps returning to, because nature keeps repeating it. The most powerful force in the natural world is not strength, and it is not speed, it is control. The ability of one organism to reach inside another and turn it into a tool. Fungi do it to ants, driving them up a stem to die in the perfect spot for spores. Parasites do it to fish, to crustaceans, to mammals. And here, a wasp does it to a spider, turning a skilled predator into an unpaid laborer building its enemy's nursery. Every creature in this story is one of two things: the one that controls, and the one that is controlled, the host, or the hijacker. But here is the detail that lingers, the one researchers find hardest to shake. If you remove the larva from the spider's back on the right day, before that final flood of chemicals, the spider recovers completely. The fog lifts, the foreign instructions fade, and within days it goes back to building its ordinary hunting webs as if nothing ever happened, which means that all through its captivity, the spider was never broken. The machinery of its mind was intact the entire time. It was simply being given the wrong orders, in its own voice, by a passenger it could not feel and could not name. The spider was never absent. It was present for all of it, fully itself, doing what felt, from the inside, exactly like its own free choice. It chose to tear down its web. It chose to build the fortress. It chose to sit at the center and wait. And not once did it suspect that the will moving its legs was not entirely its own. That is the truly disquieting part. Not that the spider was controlled, but that being controlled, from the inside, may feel like nothing at all. The wasp wins not with venom or strength, but with a whispered chemical command the spider was built to trust. But not every hijacker hides in the shadows and works in silence. Some announce themselves with raw, screaming force, with a strike so overwhelming that grown adults have described it as being set on fire while wired to a battery. If a wasp that quietly enslaves a spider unsettled you, wait until you meet the insects, whose only weapon is pure deliberate agony. That is the next video waiting for you right now. The 7 most painful insect stings on Earth. Ranked, with the one nobody believes until it is too late. Tap it and keep watching. Because the more you learn about how these creatures operate, the more one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Host or hijacker, no one is safe.